Are you one of those people who's actually gotten off your katukas and started planning for retirement? Saved some money, paid off some debt, maybe opened a 401k or a Roth IRA? You've done the work, or at least some of it. But what if there's still one missing piece? How are you going to use that money once you retire? You know what? There's not one person who will say they want to run out of money after they retire. So if you've been building towards the future but don't have a clear plan for turning your savings into income, let's fix that today. In today's video, we're going to walk through 5 of the most common strategies people use to make the retirement savings last, and how to start planning for your version of financial freedom. If you want a free printable checklist of all the strategies I'm going to cover in this video, whether you want to follow along as we go or you just want to keep it on hand to refer back to, you can download it using the link below. All right, strategy 1 is probably the one you've heard the most about. It's called the 4% rule, but I like to call it the starting point, because that's really what it is. It's a starting place. It's not a finish line. So here's how it works. You take the total amount you've saved for retirement, let's say $500,000, and you plan to withdraw about 4% of that amount per year. So in this case, that's $20,000 a year, or roughly $1,666 a month. If you prefer, we can call it $1,700 a month if that other number gives you the willies. The idea is, if you stick to that 4%, your money should last around 30 years, even with the market's ups and downs. And it's based on this thing called the Trinity study, which sounds superficial, but basically it's just a bunch of researchers who said, hey, this math tends to work most of the time, so why do I call this the starting point? Because this strategy doesn't adjust for things like what your actual expenses will be, whether you'll work part-time, whether you'll take Social Security, or even what kind of lifestyle you want to live. It also assumes you're investing in a fairly traditional mix of stocks and bonds, and that you'll leave that money invested through retirement. So is the 4% rule bad? No, not at all. It's just not personalized. Think of it like a budget estimate from a template. It gives you a ballpark, but it doesn't tell you if it fits you. So here's my take. If you're in your 30s, 40s, or your 50s, and you're building up your savings, this rule can be super useful as a way to reverse engineer your goal. If you want to live on, say, $40,000 a year in retirement, that's about $1 million saved. Want to have about $60K? That's about $1.5 million saved. And it's a place to aim. This is incredibly helpful if you're in the building phase. Just remember, this rule doesn't guarantee anything. It just gives you a framework to start thinking long term. And that's what we're doing here. We're not chasing a number, but learning how to make that number work for your life. Strategy 2 is called the bucket strategy. And it's all about organizing your money into time frames, so you're not scrambling when life doesn't go as planned. So bucket 1 is your short-term bucket, and it's designed to cover the first, say, 1 to 3 years of basic living expenses after you retire. Now, let me be super clear. This is not your emergency fund. And that's a mistake a lot of people make. We've all heard the advice to have 3 months, 6 months, maybe even a year's worth of expenses set aside in an emergency fund. So it's really easy to think, I've got a few years to go. Why not just keep my early retirement money in the same account? Here's why you don't want to do that. When your retirement cash is sitting in the same place as your emergency fund, it's way too easy to justify dipping into it just a little. You might say, I don't need this for like 10 or 15 years, so I'll just borrow a little bit and I'll pay it back later. Well, before you know it, your retirement cushion gets chipped away, and it's not from an emergency, but just by convenience. So instead, you want to set up a separate account, or if you prefer, multiple accounts that are dedicated solely to your short-term retirement money. So here's a few places that you can keep it. A high-yield savings account, a money market account, CDs, certificates of deposit, U.S. Treasury bills, or any other liquid, low-risk investments that's easy to convert into cash. The goal here is not growth. It's stability and access. But just because growth isn't the goal doesn't mean you should just keep putting it off or push it to the bottom of your priorities. In fact, the earlier you start building this cushion, even a little bit at a time, the more freedom you'll have later. When it comes time to retire, you don't want to be scrambling to figure out where your first few years of income will come from. And starting earlier gives you a little boost from the interest it earns. So that's just some bonus money. So bucket 1 becomes your retirement paycheck for the first 1 to 3 years after you retire. It supports your lifestyle while your long-term investments keep growing quietly in the background. So bucket 2 is your midterm money. This covers years, say, 3 to 10. And it might include things like bonds or conservative investments that grow a bit over time, but they don't bounce around too much. This bucket is meant to refill bucket 1 as it's needed. And bucket 3 is your long-term growth bucket, usually stocks, index funds, and other long-term assets that are meant to ride out the market's ups and downs. You probably won't touch this one for about 10 years or more after you retire, so it has plenty of time to grow. Now, here's why this strategy works. It keeps you from freaking out every time the stock market drops, because when the market's down, you're not pulling from bucket 3. You're still living off bucket 1, and maybe you're tapping into bucket 2 when it's needed. It's kind of like having money at 3 different stages of readiness. You got some money for today, you got some money that you'll need soon, and then you got some money that someday you'll need it down the line. For example, you might be contributing to a Roth IRA or a 401k. Now that's bucket 3. Maybe you're thinking about a CD ladder or a conservative investment account. This could become bucket 2. And then you just need to set up a low-risk account like the ones I mentioned, and that would serve as your bucket 1. Now, if you still have 10, 15, maybe even 20 years away from retirement, you don't need to set them all up at once. But the truth is, the sooner you get started, the better off you'll be when the time comes. What I love about this strategy is that it helps you mentally organize your money by purpose and time, not just by the account type. And when it's time to start using your savings, the system makes your income feel intentional, not random or reactive. And it gives you some breathing room. And let's be honest, that's one of the most valuable things you can have in retirement. Strategy 3 is what I call smart tax withdrawals. And here's why this one matters so much. When it comes time to actually use your retirement money, the order you withdraw it in can have a huge impact on your taxes, not just in 1 year, but over the entire term of your retirement. So let's talk about the 3 main types of retirement accounts and the order most people use versus what actually might be a smarter idea. Account type 1 is taxable accounts. This is your regular brokerage account. You've already paid taxes on the money you put in. So when you take money out, you usually only pay taxes on the gains. And this is typically the first account people tap into because it's the most flexible. There's no age requirements. There's no penalties. There's no required minimum distributions. The smart move here is to start here to keep your taxable income low early in retirement. Account type 2 is tax deferred accounts. This includes your traditional 401ks and traditional IRAs. You didn't pay taxes when the money went in, so now Uncle Sam is waiting for his cut. Withdrawals from these accounts are taxed as ordinary income, and once you hit your 70s, you're required to start taking money out, whether you need it or not. Those are called RMDs, required minimum distributions. Now, the smart move is, depending on your tax bracket, you might want to delay pulling from these or consider Roth conversions in your lower income years. Account type 3 is tax-free accounts. This is your Roth IRA, Roth 401k, or even your HSA if used for qualified medical expenses. You already paid taxes going in, and now you can withdraw the money tax-free. This is like your secret weapon. You can use it to fill income gaps in your high tax years, avoid bumping into higher brackets, or leave it alone to grow tax-free for as long as you want. The smart move is to save this for your later years, or use it strategically when you'll want to avoid triggering extra taxes on Social Security or Medicare premiums. Now here's the catch. A lot of people just start pulling money from whatever account feels easiest, or they leave everything alone until the RMDs kick in, and that can lead to massive tax inefficiencies. But if you have a smart tax approach, you can often lower your lifetime tax bill, stretch your savings even further, and avoid those hidden traps like IMRAA surcharges or Social Security taxation. IMRAA just stands for Income Related Monthly Adjustment Amount, and this is basically a Medicare surcharge. If your income in retirement is too high, you'll pay extra premiums for Medicare Part B and Part D. And the kicker is that it's based on your income from 2 years ago, not the year you're actually in. So if you're not careful about when and how you withdraw money from your accounts, you could accidentally push yourself into a higher bracket and end up paying hundreds or even thousands more per year for healthcare. So this is where smart tax withdrawal planning really pays off, because it's not just about taxes. It's about avoiding those sneaky penalties that most people don't even know exist until it's too late. Okay, so what does that mean if you're not retired yet? It means now is the time to build your accounts with intention. Here's a few ways to start making those decisions. Ask yourself, do I want more flexibility later? Should I be doing partial Roth conversions? How much do I want to keep in taxable accounts for early withdrawals? It's not about being perfect. It's about setting yourself up for more options down the road, because in retirement, taxes aren't just a nuisance. They're one of the biggest expenses you'll have. And having a smart withdrawal plan is one of the best ways to protect your freedom. I know how confusing all of this can get, especially if you're just getting started and have no clue what you're actually going to need right now, or how things might shift later when your income or your goals change. So I want to be clear, I am not a financial advisor, and I can't give you specific advice about exactly how and when or where to invest or withdraw your money. But if you're feeling overwhelmed, it's worth sitting down with a financial advisor, ideally one who's a fiduciary, someone who can help you run the actual numbers and figure out the withdrawal strategy that fits your specific life and timeline. Because this isn't about following one perfect formula. It's about building a plan that fits you and the life you want. And if you haven't already, make sure to download the free checklist I put together. It's a quick printable guide with all 5 strategies and a few notes to help you figure out which one might fit your life best. And it can also help you be better prepared when you decide to talk to a financial advisor about your retirement. You'll find the link right below this video. Now let's talk about strategy 4, the guardrails approach. And this one is great if you're someone who wants both structure and flexibility in retirement. Here's the idea. Instead of sticking to one fixed withdrawal number, like 4%, the guardrails approach gives you some wiggle room to approach your withdrawals based on what's happening in real life. Let's say you start retirement with a plan to withdraw $2,000 a month. If the market has a great year and your investments grow more than expected, your guardrails might let you increase your withdrawals a little the next year, maybe $2,200. But if the market takes a dip, the guardrails kick in and you pull back, maybe to $1,800, so you don't drain your accounts too quickly. It's like having a smart cruise control system for your retirement income. You've got a target speed, but you automatically slow down or speed up depending on the flow of traffic and what's happening right in front of you. Now, the official version of this strategy was developed by some retirement researchers who ran simulations and came up with percentages and thresholds. But for most people, it doesn't have to be that technical. It can be as simple as saying, if my balance drops below this number, I reduce my withdrawals. If it goes above that number, well, then I give myself a little raise. And you get to decide what those numbers are based on your lifestyle and what feels safe or comfortable to you. And the reason I love this strategy, especially for future-focused adults, is because it gives you the opportunity to stay engaged with your money without obsessing over it. And if you're still some years away from retirement, this is a mindset you can start building now. Pay attention to your cash flow. Notice how you adjust when things change. Practice pulling back sometimes and giving yourself more when it makes sense, because life doesn't follow a spreadsheet, and building the habit of adjusting as you go, that's the secret to making your plan actually work. Strategy 5 is what I call the income bridge strategy. And this one is about buying yourself some time. Here's the idea. Instead of retiring and immediately pulling from all your retirement accounts, you build a bridge, a way to cover your expenses for a few years so you can delay tapping into Social Security, pensions, or even some of your investment accounts. So why would you want to do this? Why would you want to delay? Because in a lot of cases, the longer you wait, the more you'll get. For example, if you delay Social Security until age 70, your monthly benefit could be 30 to 77% higher than if you took it at 62. So the bridge strategy is about saying, how can I support myself for a few extra years before I activate my biggest income sources, so that when I do start withdrawing from them, they're stronger and more sustainable? That bridge could come from a bunch of places. Part-time income from something you enjoy, maybe some rental income, a business or freelance work, a chunk of savings you're intentionally setting aside for this purpose, like the bucket 1 strategy that I mentioned earlier, or even just tapping into taxable investment accounts early while leaving your retirement accounts alone. It's not about working forever. It's about being strategic, just for a few more years, so your retirement feels stronger and more relaxed once you finally settle in. Right now, before you retire, is one of the best times to start thinking about how you'll build that bridge later. You might already be growing a side income. You might be saving more into a taxable brokerage account. Or maybe you're just realizing that your ideal retirement isn't about quitting cold turkey. It's about working differently in the next season of life. This strategy gives you options. And that's what real holistic wealth is all about. If you want to keep building your retirement plan from here, check out this video next for some practical steps that will make sure you're ready for retirement before you turn in your papers and walk out the door.